Welcome to the Leadership Heart Podcast with Sandra J. Horton, the Growth Catalyst. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Leadership Heart Podcast, where innovation meets motivation, where leaders truly lead with heart through incredible change, but with exceptional impact. I am absolutely honored today. I'm going to bring up an amazing individual who I had the great fortune welcome, Paul Lawrence Fan. Welcome, my friend.
I'm honored to be here, Sandra, and we're going to have a great time. I'm honored to be here with the Leadership Heart Podcast. Let's give them more than they asked for today.
Yes. Thank you, Paul. You know, truly it is an honor to have you on my Leadership Heart Podcast. You know, your wisdom, your influence, and your motivation, your contribution has been incredible. And, you know, we are very closely aligned together about the importance of not being only a servant leader, but really connecting people through this uncertain time. And I was just very fortunate to be on your show that was just recent, and it was absolutely amazing. So, Paul, you know, tell us, the audience, a little bit about yourself as we kind of ground in into this show, and then we'll dig into some of those wonderful questions. So tell us an interesting fact about yourself that maybe some people don't know about you.
Thanks for asking this amazing question, Sandra. And one of the things that some people don't know about me is the fact that even though the title of my podcast and my business is Wealth Building Academy, that's the name of my business. Mm-hmm. But I also did quite a bit of legislative work when I was in the United States Air Force. And I applied to become a Capitol Hill Fellow, and it's a program through Georgetown University. And as a result, I was competitively selected to work for a member of Congress for a year. And I'm pretty sure no one saw that coming in my life, because I didn't. But it taught me a lot, and I'll share perhaps a little bit about that even more today.
So thank you, Paul. And, you know, a little bit more about Paul. And that's why I love to open this up and get you to share first. And I'm going to share a little bit about on your bio, because it really, truly is so just incredible. So as Paul mentioned, he is the founder and president of Wealth Building Academy, LLC. And it truly is a premier leadership development consultancy headquartered in Washington, D.C. So you are right in the hub in the U.S., and I love this because we share this similar word. You are known as the Leadership Catalyst. Yes. And I'm just known as the Growth Catalyst. So I love that we are catalysts. We motivate, we activate people. But importantly is that you equip organizations to understand the leaders, to understand the core leadership competencies. Before that, you were also served 22 years. Thank you for your service as a commissioned officer in the United States Air Force. And that included distinguished 12-year tenure, in the Pentagon, and a year at Capitol Hill, as you said earlier. And you were retired and as a rank of lieutenant colonel from the UCAF. That is absolutely incredible. But more importantly is that you're an amazing author, and you're sharing and you're speaking and you're doing all this global work. And I just wanted to celebrate you as we kind of move into that. Now, I'm going to celebrate you in one other way and then get into that first question. This is Paul's book, one of the books, and it's called Leadership is Influence. So one of the first questions that I have for you, Paul, in your book, you lay out 3 core pillars that every leader should build on. So to kick us off now into our questions, can you share a little bit about those 3 pillars in your own words? And can you tell us which one you see leaders struggling with most today?
Fantastic. Thank you for that awesome question. And yes, I did write Leadership is Influence, and primarily because I felt that it was really who I am. And so I decided to expound on it through the book. But one of the first principles in it is for people to become lifelong learners. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but it's very important. People can start out by just reading a book on leadership. For example, one of the leaders I looked up to in the Pentagon was General Colin Powell. He was a four-star general, and I worked under him, not directly under him, but while he was leading the Pentagon. He was the chairman
Mhm.
of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And by learning, and then you can also learn by observing those people that you work with. So that's what I did with General Powell, like a lot of the other junior officers did. And then it's also participating in groups and organizations that are applicable to one's expertise. It could be someone in leadership attending a seminar, it could be a webinar. And so by doing that, people learn, but becoming a lifelong learner, never stopping to learn more about leadership, because leadership really is about each and every individual. So that's part one. Part two is actually giving an individual, an employee or a manager, a opportunity to lead. For example, they may be working on a project for the organization. I used to work for Mobile Oil Company as part of my experience, professional experience, and
Mhm.
I would have to lead a team in an audit. So we would bring in one of the big accounting firms. The audit would take place at night, about midnight, because the volume in the tank farm would give you a more accurate rating than in the heat of the sun during the day.
Mhm.
And so I had to lead that particular program. And that's just an example of what someone can do in terms of giving you that experience. And then you build a team to help you with that. For me, for example, that audit. So that's number two. And then number three is the person really needs to enroll in and be supported by their leadership to actually attend a leadership training program or seminar, because
Mhm.
that would give them more confidence going forward. And when it comes down to which one, it has to be giving that person some experience, because
Yeah.
nothing beats getting actual experience in a particular job or getting ready for promotion, the actual experience, because we know through experience sometimes we fail forward. So even if a person makes a mistake, that's not the important part. What's important is that they learn and move forward from there. And that's why I look at that as one of the most important aspects of that core three pillars that I have. Leadership
Yeah,
is
I love that, and Paul, I want to welcome those who are on LinkedIn. Thank you, Debbie. Thanks, Christian, MD Nazmul. Thank you for being here and looking as well with for any questions. If anyone has any questions, feel free to jump in and put them on the side. Paul, one of the most important things that you just mentioned there is the importance of really engaging the whole person, engaging the opportunity to support someone.
yes.
And I would say to my audience, I'm sure as a leader right now, there's some people in your organization or people
Mhm.
maybe that you can identify that they have some really interesting skill sets. They're emotionally
Mhm.
intelligent. You can just see they have this opportunity, but you're looking at that individual in a certain lens, aren't you? You're looking at that whole person. And really, leadership starts from that inside out to really know yourself. So when you're looking at someone to give them the opportunity, you're seeing them for who they are. I would
Yes.
love to learn a little bit more from your perspective. What is your take on from the inside out? Like, how can a leader really identify with someone who is perhaps that right new fit or will be that next, leader upcoming? Because you've been around, like you said, you were mentored by,
Yes.
Colonel Colin Powell. So,
Yes. Yes, that's a great question, and one that's very important. Primarily, it's the question about the whole person concept is important, because
mhm,
when we bring in, let's say, a new employee or a manager, we want to look at their entire experience, the mind, the body, their spirit, and their purpose. Because when we
mhm,
look at it in totality, it really tells us who they are, and we can grow and build them from there. And we also, when we look internally, we want to look at that self-awareness. To have self-awareness is to know thyself, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, and that helps us to make better decisions, moving a person forward within an organization. And of course, being in the military, we actually could evaluate and do that. And when it comes to looking at the whole person concept, we want a person to develop them into an influential leader. And so, what is an influential leader? Influential leader is a person who is able to get people who work for them or with them to get the job done, be organized. It's for the greater good. It's not necessarily about the individual, but it's more about the organization as a whole. How do we move forward? How do we get a competitive advantage? And we can do that through that influential leadership aspect. We also want to cultivate that emotional intelligence, and then for having authentic influence or intelligence. That really makes a tremendous difference with people too. But when it comes to the whole person concept, I'll use an example. I was reading a book and they talked about an individual who actually was trying to jump over um, a barrier. And they asked him, well, why can't you jump over this barrier? He was in track and field. And it was a mental block that he had. And so he tried and fell, he tried and fell, and eventually he was able to jump over that barrier and go on to achieve success. And that's also the same thing that can happen in business. A person
Mhm.
try and they may fail, they may need to go back and get uh, retooled, get some professional development courses, again, give them some experience and then get them into a leadership type of program. But
Mhm.
the important part about an influential leader, a leader of influence, is they don't mind developing other leaders within the organization. They don't see it as a threat to them, but they actually see it as growth and development so that they can realize their vision for the organization, the mission, in addition to the goals that are set for the organization itself.
Wow, that was a powerful answer. So many golden nuggets. And one of the things that really stands out for me as an emotional intelligence practitioner, it's the ability and understanding to really truly
Yes.
feel what is occurring for you in that moment. And I have seen, and this is my question back to you, in your experience in working in the military and others and working with organizations, the ability to remove ego, the ability to remove, and you walk into a room, you're facilitating, you're trying to guide this beautiful new team or this organization forward. Ego can get in the way. We need to remove the ego and lead with empathy, lead with that heart center. How have you been able to help support organizations to build more empathy, that human centered approach, so that the communication, other things are enhanced? Because if we don't change what we're doing, we're still going to be stuck in some silos or in organizations that are less effective. So, how have you been able to, provide that opportunity of growth for organizations you work with?
Yes, Sandra, and a great question. In other words, when we look at that from the emotional intelligence standpoint and empathy, just letting them know that we're all human and everybody is trying their hardest.
Mhm.
We no longer in that period where people, a supervisor or manager can demand anything from anyone. We're just not there, especially with our Generation Z employees. And so they have to really approach that new employee or the managers with understanding, well, what is their family life like? You know, they having some struggles at home. Are they having some struggles in the community? Are they being paid sufficient amount of money to really stay on that job and not lose them? You want to be able to retain them because you want to develop them. It costs a lot more to train a new employee than to retain one by providing them with that professional development. But some of the things that I work with organizations on, and I have over the years, is that I would go out and conduct some training. For example, I would be flown into Austin, Texas. They have a conference taking place. And one of the things that I did, I had a breakout session. I had about 300 people in there. So I'm leading this training myself. It was really about cultural awareness. And I was just letting people know that I'm going to select every 10 people at the table, we're going to select one leader from that table, and you're going to actually process the information that I lead you all with. And people came away with better understanding. I get them to work together. They would stand up and deliver their presentation so everyone could hear it. And so there was a lot of learning that was taking place. And so that really helps. And these core competencies I provide includes things such as leading and motivating employees, how to manage difficult conversations, and then how people can go about understanding how they can become empathetic, and that understanding that with emotional intelligence, it's important to understand the human being. And a leader who
Mhm.
understands this succeeds, but one that doesn't, they typically don't last very long, because in the end, if the revenue is not generated, productivity is not generated, and competitively they're not working within their industry, they won't be there that long. So it's very
Mhm.
important for everyone to understand that we're all just human, and we can help each other. We have to, again, look at the big picture, and the big picture is for the good of the organization. We're going to take away the ego. We need to be very authentic. In fact, it's probably better that a leader would just be open with people and just let them
Mhm.
know, this is really me. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying my hardest, just like you are, and working together to make that organization, making that workplace a safe place to work, and to help develop people over the course of the time that they're working there.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you again for being, giving some examples. And it is very powerful. And I would love to offer and ask you as well. One of the things that I have seen is in building the rapport with individuals, one on one, and having those kind of crucial conversations, or like you were saying, you're facilitating 300 people, and it's helping support individuals to look at how can I connect with someone else. How have you been successful in doing that, or helping others to do that? Like I'm thinking about understanding the importance of reflection and like observation and engagement, pace setting, rapport building. Can you give the audience, maybe one or two, three little nuggets and how we can improve that communication connection, the effectiveness of how we communicate?
Yes, and thank you for that great question, because communication is one of the top requirements of a great leader, a good leader as well. You have to be able to communicate with people, and the best way to communicate with people is to just let the guard down. We have to get away from the titles nowadays, because an employee is a leader, a manager
Mhm.
is a leader, and so is the leader with the title. But until we can bring them all together and we obtain that cohesion, then everything won't work unless we're able to do that. And so some examples that I have is that when I worked on Capitol Hill, and we had a pilot, and the pilot refused to fly on a mission in a certain country or region. I can't say what it was. And, and so and so the member of Congress came to me and said, well, what can we do about this? Because his parents are asking us, they want us to help him. I said, well, in the term uses conscientious objector. In other words,
Yeah.
he didn't want to fly on a mission. So it was my job to find out why. And I said, okay, so why are you not going on this mission?
Yeah.
Well, I have a fiance, and she said if I flew on this mission, that she was going to leave me. Oh,
Oh,
she's in
wow.
the she's in the military too? Yeah. So she knows better. I said, okay,
Hmm.
so we're going to give you one more chance if you're going to go out on this mission that you have been ordained to go out on.
Hmm.
And he refused. And sadly enough, we had to go to his father and say, well, we're going to have to take his wings. He would no longer be able to fly. And you know what happened, Sandra? She left him anyway. She left him,
Wow.
and then he's out of the military. And because we train our pilots, and he was what's called a conscientious objector, but that's just
Hmm.
one form of communication right there, that had
Hmm.
he really understood what he had signed up for, he knew better. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, okay, so your relationship isn't working out, but you have to look at the greater good. Are you going to
Yeah.
support your country or this individual? And so
Yeah.
it came down to that. And another example is when I was working at Mobile Oil Company, and I was then considered to be brought back on duty after I separated for 2 years. I was in the Air Force for 8 years. I left as a captain, and then I was brought back in 2 years later. And so I had to have that hard conversation with my supervisors at Mobile. And I said, well, I think I'm going to be heading back. And they didn't necessarily like that because they had invested in me, right?
Yeah.
So part of my conversation was I had 3 weeks to get my physical exam, and I was 30 pounds overweight, Sandra.
Oh my.
I was eating that good French food in New Orleans and all that great food, and I had really gotten a little
Wow.
heavy, if you will. And in 3 weeks, I lost 32 pounds.
Wow.
I went to my physical exam in San Antonio, Texas, and he said, "You passed the physical, but I have a question for you." "What's that question, doctor?" "Did you lose weight recently?" "Yes, I did." "How much did you lose?" I said, "I lost 33 pounds."
Wow.
That was me looking inside myself saying, I love the United States Air Force. I don't care what it takes, what sacrifice I have to make to go back in, but I'm going to do it. And that's what I
Mhm.
did. And
Yeah.
then I would say another example of stronger and better communications is when I was in college, and I'm one of 10 children. I'm the oldest son in the family, 5 boys and 5 girls. And my parents really didn't have any tuition money to give me. And so I had to communicate to my high school guidance counselor that I was college material because she told me that I wasn't.
Hmm.
And so in that communication, I just told her, I said, well, I'm still going to go for it. And that's what I did. And I didn't have any money. So what I did, people asked, well, how did you pay for college for 4 years? I did what you have to do. I got a job. I worked for 4 years. I mean, it was elementary to me, but I worked 4 years at
Yeah.
UPS, United Parcel Service, and I worked in Christmas double times. I'd be making $36 an hour at that time was really good money. And
Yeah.
and so when I had this challenge in front of me, I had to communicate to myself that I have to overcome this challenge. And I overcame it. And my parents, I never received a penny for them because they simply didn't have one. And so I found a way out of no way and in terms of being able to move forward. And had it not been for that, I would not have been able to complete college, graduate with my degree, and become the first child in the family to graduate from high school, college, and then obtain a couple of advanced degrees past that. And so that was one of mine. And the last one I want to share with you, Sandra, is this. When I went to basic training, I left Raleigh, North Carolina, where I was residing at the time in college, and I was sent to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. I had never flown on a plane before. In fact, I took a bus there because my car would have broken down on the way there. And so
But you got there.
I got there. And in the third week of that basic training,
Yeah.
they put us on what's called a C-5, which at that time was the world's largest aircraft. It was the length of a football field. And so they
Wow.
flew us over Bermuda. And so I survived my very first flight. I was happy. 2 weeks later, they flew us to Dover, Delaware on a C-5 to Columbus, Mississippi, and they put us in a two-seat jet for what's called flight orientation. And they allowed us to go up to 10,000 feet. And Sandra, they allowed us to fly the jet during that period of time.
Wow. That must have been life changing. Like I would just being up that high and
Yep.
just
Yes, it was life
wow.
changing. So my
Yeah.
communication with the instructor pilot was this. He said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm okay. I just can't breathe right now."
I can't breathe.
I guess I was nervous. And so it ended up
Wow.
being really the catalyst. There's the word catalyst for
Yeah.
me actually being just all in with the United States Air Force, and it resulted in 23 years. But it was those communication skills
Mhm.
that took place that really makes a difference for all leaders from all small business, corporations, nonprofits, colleges and universities, and more.
Oh, well, thank you so much for those amazing, like real lived, genuine stories. And it's interesting. We were chatting before we came on air, the importance of actually doing it, like being it and then doing it.
Yes.
And, one thing I just wanted to kind of re-loop back into, because I think it's so critical, is the importance of consistent and
Yes.
consistency of that right commitments to being, a person of not only discipline, because I know that's quite big in your amazing book, but also just the consistent right action and the knowingness, whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. And I just wanted to honor that. And you really brought that forward. And, I want to kind of shift a little bit around with that commitment and with that consistency builds what? Collaboration. And
Yeah.
you're an amazing collaborator. You're very supportive. And, really is in the DNA of your business. It's in the DNA of myself, and it does matter. So, the question I have then is, in your experience, what must leaders do differently to create a real culture of collaboration that actually drives results and connection?
Yes, and wonderful question, because we know today, given the dynamics of the workplace and the workforce, that is needed now more than ever. But one of the best ways for leaders to move forward is for them to really commit to the process. In other words, they can't talk about it, they have to be about it. They have to set up, for example, they have to set up a meeting for their organization. And when they set up this meeting, they need to really make the points fine that we're willing to provide that professional development training, because you want to retain your top talent. There are also things that they can do is put people in programs and have the members of the staff, whether it's the managers or the employees, to also go through training. But it can go steps further than that, Sandra. One of the things when it comes to providing leadership development training, it's not enough to provide training just to the employees, the managers, and the leader with the title. But if you have subcontractors in the organization, if you have
Mhm.
people who do cooking within the building, some organizations have that. Have them train on leadership. If you have security, people in the security area, everyone should be trained, and by one source, one company. We can look at your company, for example, and you go in. They should not bring in another company to provide training. It should be one sole source, because everyone would be receiving the exact same training, so everyone knows where they stand. But when we look at it, the consistency is all about what the leader does. If the leader doesn't
Mhm.
lead, or if the leader goes out and gets into a little bit of trouble, they end up in the news. That's not a good situation. We're gonna have to
No.
maybe have to move forward from that. And I've seen that happen before too. But
Yes.
say, for example, I worked for a general officer when I was just a wee pup of an officer. I was a second lieutenant. And he later on, he went from being a colonel to 1-star general, 2-star general, 3-star general. And the next thing you know, he was out, because he was put himself into a position where they meaning the leadership above him, actually had to let him go from the military. And he was
Mm.
reduced in rank. And it was just not a good situation. And
Mhm.
so we want to ensure that we have the proper consistency, and that we do those things to get the collaborations moving forward. And collaborations can happen in many different ways and different forms. And one of those ways and forms is to look at, even if you have a subcontractor, you can collaborate with them. As an example, I was leading a organization out of the Ohio area, and my particular orders took me from Ohio to Chicago. We worked with a contractor there. We worked there 2 or 3 days. Then we would go to Boston, Massachusetts, work there 2 or 3 days. And then we would go to Los Angeles. And all of this is in a 2-week period of time. And we had to do what's called a cost schedule control systems criteria. And what that entails is that we selected a contractor for this multi-billion-dollar program. So we had to physically go to the plant to see how they're going to produce this product for us. And we get out there, and they didn't have the proper amount of employees to perform it. It looks as though they were not going to be
Mm.
able to stay within the budget. The schedule didn't look good, so it looked like they would have a cost overrun and a budget and a scheduling overrun. And then the data that they were providing us didn't look good at all. And here are some things that they were trying to do, Sandra. They were trying to and I'll be as general here as I can, they would have these little what you call happy hours after each day's session. But
Yeah.
what they were really trying to do, they were trying to get a relationship going between the 12 people that I had there working for me and their staff, which was
Mm.
not good, right? Their
Yeah.
priorities wasn't straight. They should have been having meetings talking about, well, this is how we can improve the
Yeah.
budget. This is how we can improve the schedule. This is how we can get the data to you. So I had to report back to this two-star general, sir, we cannot go forward with this $3 billion program.
Wow.
And that
That's
meant,
a wow.
and so it impacted the local community. The member of Congress, of course, he wanted to know what happened. And
Yeah.
the mayor, he wanted to know what happened because it impacted their employment status within that area, that part of California.
Yeah.
And so it's things such as that it's why you have to really be on your P's and Q's. We have a contract here as an example. We have a contract, but we have
Mm-hmm.
to follow it. We can't have these little social things that you're trying to go on. We're standing on business. That's the term the young
Yeah.
folks. We're standing here on business.
Yeah. We're
And
in
so
business.
these other things that you're trying to do, that's not in the contract.
It's not in the contract. And, just coming back to kind of some of our earlier comments, the theme here is integrity, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really honoring what's important, standing in your truth, showing up, being it and doing it.
Yeah.
And at the heart of this, I'm going to go into one of our last questions, and then I want to really make sure we have time for any of the questions that come up, but also just to give some time for people to connect and how to connect with you. But for me, this is really important. It's around the purpose of what we do and why we do what we do. And it comes back to that service. It comes back to and why it's called the Leadership Heart podcast, is that, you have a very strong faith and heart and commitment, integrity, discipline. I mean, you've demonstrated that. That is your life. You've been in service. And the question I have is, could you share that about your belief about leadership? It isn't just strategy. It truly is the soul's work. So how does a strong sense of purpose really anchor a leader's influence today, especially as we navigate these rather rapid times of change, particularly within the age of technology and change?
Yes, well, I tell you that is a wonderful question, Sandra, and I'll respond by saying this is that when we look at an individual, let's say, for example, they happen to be in a leadership position with the title, they're going to have to know who they are, because they really don't need to be been swung by any form of doctrine. They have to be committed because they have so much responsibility with their managers and with their employees. And given the today's climate with the economy and the workforce, it's very incumbent upon them to really stand strong. This is not the time to be a weak leader.
No, not at all.
You have to be a strong leader, not so much in strength, but strong in philosophy, values, beliefs. And as you mentioned before, they have to really be committed to the process. And in order to lead people now, you have to be very strong. Again, we have a new generation that's coming up that will not do what the generation baby boomers did. They will not do what the other generations before them have done. So you have to be very clear about who you're going to hire, why you're going to hire them, and then how you're going to develop them. But I would have to say a person has to have some faith. I'm going to put faith out there. You have to have faith. You have to have belief in yourself. You have to have a strong vision for the organization. And whatever the mission happens to be, you want to be the best. Always work to be the best. And leadership is really the common denominator that can make all of this happen. If you have strong leadership, you are going to fly. We have a company that just went in valuation of $4 trillion, the first time that's ever happened. I would have to say there's some strong leadership going on there.
There's definitely some strong leadership going on there.
Taking place, and they're going to get bigger and they're going to get better. And there's this thing we know out there, Sandra, called the best places to work. And I would tell people to go do some research. Let's say the top 10 companies to work for is to go out there and look at what they're doing and look at who their leader is and look at employees would tell you how well the company is being led. They would tell you.
It's true.
Yes, and that being the case, I would say look at the top 10. And there's one other caveat I want to talk about, Sandra, real quick. I also deliver presentations on developing more women leaders because only 10% of women lead Fortune 500 companies, and that number really should be closer to 50% as a minimum. And so I go out and deliver a program of how to develop more women leaders, because when you look at the pool of resources in the future, more women are born than men. Women are going to be leading, and they know how to lead.
Well, you know what? I thank you for that heart-centered commitment. I do feel that we, as however you identify, male, female, I think the importance is that we are allies to each other, that we uphold each other, that we uplift each other. And it really talks about mindset, doesn't it? It's having a growth mindset. It's being open to each other's perspectives, our cultural differences, and building that collaboration, that heart-centered connection. It's not in the mind, what can I do for you? It's like, how can we reciprocally connect heart to heart in order to grow? And one of the things that I wanted to kind of go back and lean in to your incredible book, you talk about those 3 pillars, and I really admire that you really are very much about the attitude and mindset is your altitude. And that comes from the, our I call it from the Canada RCAF, but the USAF side, because my dad was a fighter pilot in World War II and flew a Hawker Hurricane. So that's also another connection. But you also talked about the importance and the power of competence, and not just telling people what to do, but showing them. We talked about bringing people up. And again, that 3-pronged approach that you shared at the beginning, that we need to keep studying leadership, that we need to volunteer for leadership opportunities, and to actively seek training and growth. So for anyone listening, Paul, if you're ready to build this new team and you want to build your own influence yourself, what's one step that individual could take for this next week? I love action steps. I love to, give that back to the audience to position themselves as more of a valuable asset with more influence to lead from a place of excellence.
Yes, and the thing I would say, and which is really the reality, is that one has to really become the best leader they can be. And the way to do that is through self-leadership. And self-leadership is really about having the awareness about one's strengths, about one's weaknesses, and developing those skills, whether it's communication, whether it's decision-making, and then looking at using those leadership skills to help them move forward. In other words, if a leader does not have good self-leadership skills, knowing how to lead themselves first, then they can't lead other people. It's impossible, because you have to be able to lead yourself. And leading yourself, because we know with corporations, especially now, a lot of businesses are closing. And so you have to make that decision about what are we going to do if we're not able to meet the requirements to continue to operate. So there's some hard decisions have to be made. There's succession decisions that have to be made. And I truly believe that all of this comes down to an influential leader who has strong self-leadership skills, which means self-awareness and emotional intelligence, empathy, and developing other people under them to have those same qualities. And together and united, they can move forward and do great things. Because when we look at an organization or company as an example, when you want to strengthen the local community by hiring people in that community, and by doing so, you strengthen it. And then it goes from local to state to regional to national and international. And that's really what it comes down to. It has to have strong leaders with strong self-leadership skills.
Well, I'm going to just do a quick little, I'm so grateful for you. You're providing a ebook for this beautiful audience at the Leadership Heart podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that ebook and how people can access it? Because I think that's a beautiful link into what you were just saying.
Fantastic. And thank you so much. One of the things that the reasons why I'm providing this ebook is called The Influential Leader. And it gets really people who may not understand leadership that much, because people don't really sit around and talk about leadership. They really don't. But
Mhm.
this is one way to help them kind of get off the curve, read it, see how it impacts you. And what the book does, it kind of gives you a breakdown of where to start, why are you doing it, who are you, and then how to become collaborative with people who you work for. And you can get it. Just simply go to www.paulvanspeaks.com. The pop-up will come there, and as soon as you put your email address in there, it'll be there for an instant download. So,
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Paul. And as we wrap up today, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. And for everyone listening, I hope you'll take these insights and truly bring them into your heart, and then to action them away, like into something that you're doing today and into your teams. Now, Paul, I know you have some upcoming events. You're always speaking,
yeah,
this one coming up on Friday. Can you
right.
share with everyone about the speaker showcase, which is on July 18th? And I know
Yes.
you have a Blue Talk coming up,
Yes.
and where they can get a hold of you. So we're
Oh,
open to
fantastic.
how we can connect to you.
Sure, fantastic. And thank you for asking, Sandra. It's an honor being here. On the Friday, July 18th, I'll be in what's called a speaker showcase. It's from a program I'm in called Stage Ready. So this program, I will deliver a keynote presentation. It's going to be 6 minutes, 6 minutes. But the speech itself can be expanded to 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, by adding layers of content to it. And so I'll be delivering this Friday, and it's going to be really great. It's going to be in Silver Spring, Maryland, at the AFI Theater, and everyone is welcome, and there's no cost for attendance. Just come on out and support me and the other 9 speakers. There are going to be 10 of us, and I'm honored to do it. And then with the Blue Talk, I'm going to be interviewed on Tuesday, and that takes place at 10:45 a.m. And I'll be talking about leadership development, and that's going to be really amazing as well. So you can learn more about it. Just go to LinkedIn, and you'll be able to find me there at Paul Lawrence Van. And I have all of that content and information there for you. And Sandra, what I want to say to you is thank you so much. She was not only a great host, everyone, but she's a tremendous guest as well.
Oh,
And
thank
she's a
you.
conscious leader, and she knows the AI inside out. So I highly recommend Sandra for other podcasters to bring on, and for people to hire her as well to deliver her programs.
Oh, well, thank you, my friend. This has been so delightful, so much value. And, at the Leadership Heart podcast, we're always about taking that single step to move forward in life. So, what have you learned today? What are you committing to? Because it's the committed, right, consistent action that's going to lead you forward. So, really take the time today, as I say, connect to yourself, observe, reflect, and engage. The core change model. Do it now. Decide what you want to do and go and do it. And
Yeah.
from my heart to your heart, thank you for showing up. Thank you, Paul. What a great
Thank
honor
you.
to have such an incredible person, such a blessing to myself. Greatest gratitude. And I'm just going to put you down below. We're going to end, and then we'll catch you on the other side. Thanks, everyone who's joined now and who is listening on Audibles, wherever that's going to be. Spotify, Apple, we are there. Take care. Thanks, everyone.